The knock came at 11:37 p.m. on a Tuesday night, violent enough to wake the dead. Ethan Brooks froze halfway through, tucking his daughter's blanket around her shoulders, his heart hammering against his ribs. No one knocked like that unless something was catastrophically wrong. He stumbled to the door, exhaustion making his movements clumsy, and yanked it open to find the last person he expected, Victoria Hale, his CEO, standing in his apartment hallway in a designer coat and fury carved into every line of her face. She didn't ask to come in. She didn't apologize for the hour. She just looked him dead in the eye and said two words that detonated his entire world. "You're fired." Before we dive into how a midnight firing turned into the strangest salvation of my life, I need you to do something for me. This story goes places you won't expect, and I want to know how far it travels. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from, and if this hook grabbed you, hit that like button. Now let me tell you about the night my life fell apart so it could finally come together. Ethan Brooks had forgotten what it felt like to breathe without purpose. Every inhale was calculated, timed between emails, meetings, the mechanical motions of survival. Every exhale carried the weight of things left undone. Standing in his doorway at nearly midnight, staring at Victoria Hale's Arctic expression, he realized he'd also forgotten how to process shock. "I'm sorry, what?" His voice came out hoarse, barely functional. Behind him, he heard the soft creak of floorboards. Lily was still awake. "You're fired, Mr. Brooks." Victoria's tone was surgical, precise. She stood perfectly still in the hallway, her charcoal coat buttoned against the October chill that crept through the building's ancient heating system. "Effective immediately. I need to speak with you. May I come in?" The question was rhetorical. She was already moving past him, her heels clicking against the worn hardwood of his apartment floor with the same authority she commanded in the boardroom 40 stories above the city. Ethan's mind spun uselessly, grasping at explanations that wouldn't come. Fired? He'd worked 80-hour weeks for the past 6 months. He'd sacrificed sleep, health, every moment that wasn't absolutely essential to keeping Lily fed and clothed. His performance reviews had been flawless. "Daddy?" Lily appeared in the hallway, her small hand rubbing at her eyes. She was 7 years old, all wild brown curls and her mother's gentle features. The sight of her in her faded unicorn pajamas, 2 sizes too small now because Ethan kept forgetting to buy new ones, sent a knife of guilt through his chest. "Who's here?" Just someone from work, sweetheart." Ethan moved to intercept her, placing himself between his daughter and the woman who'd apparently come to destroy what was left of his stability. "Go back to bed, I'll be there in a minute." But Victoria had already turned, her expression shifting into something Ethan couldn't quite read. She crouched down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level with a grace that seemed at odds with the Ice Queen reputation she'd cultivated over 15 years of ruthless corporate leadership. "Hello?" Victoria's voice lost its edge, softening into something almost warm. "I'm Victoria. I work with your dad. I'm sorry we woke you up." Lily studied her with the unnerving directness only children possessed. "You're really pretty. Are you a princess?" Something flickered across Victoria's face, surprise maybe, or pain, before the professional mask slid back into place. "Not quite, but thank you." She glanced up at Ethan. "She should be asleep. It's a school night." The criticism landed like a slap. Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. "Lily, please. Bed. Now." His daughter's lower lip trembled, confusion clouding her features, but she obeyed. Ethan waited until he heard her bedroom door close before turning on Victoria, exhaustion giving way to anger he didn't know he still had the energy to feel. "What the hell is this?" His voice stayed low, conscious of thin walls and curious neighbors. "You fire me and then critique my parenting? You show up at my home in the middle of the night." "It's 11:42, Victoria corrected. "Hardly the middle of the night. For single parents it is." The words came out sharper than he intended. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, realizing with distant embarrassment that he probably looked like hell. He was wearing sweatpants with a coffee stain on the knee and a t-shirt he'd owned since college. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. "I don't understand what's happening. If this is about the Mercer account, I submitted those projections yesterday. If it's about the presentation, this isn't about your work product." Victoria moved further into the apartment, and Ethan saw her taking in the details he'd stopped noticing months ago. The stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter, the dishes in the sink, fossilized with dried food, the laundry basket overflowing onto the floor, Lily's homework scattered across the coffee table alongside empty energy drink cans and his laptop, still open, still glowing with unfinished emails. Though we should discuss that too. She turned to face him fully, and in the dim light of his living room, Ethan noticed things he'd never registered in the office. The fine lines around her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights similar to his own. The way her perfectly tailored suit couldn't quite hide the tension in her shoulders. The fact that at nearly midnight on a Tuesday, she looked exactly as composed as she did at 8 a.m. Monday morning meetings. "When was the last time you slept, Mr. Brooks?" The question caught him off guard. What? Slept. More than 4 hours. When? Ethan's mind went blank. He honestly couldn't remember. "I don't see how that's relevant to—" "You fell asleep in the quarterly review meeting last Thursday." Victoria's words were clinical, but her eyes held something else. Concern? Anger? He couldn't tell. "You nodded off twice during the presentation. Marcus had to nudge you awake." Shame burned through him. "I'd been up all night with Lily. She had a fever. I couldn't—" "You didn't tell anyone. You didn't ask to reschedule. You didn't delegate the Parsons contract despite the fact that 3 junior associates volunteered to handle it." Victoria's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her controlled facade. "You missed 2 client dinners last month. You were 40 minutes late to the strategy session on Monday. Your reports, while technically accurate, have been submitted at 3 and 4 a.m. Last week you sent me an email at 5:30 in the morning that was clearly written in a state of severe sleep deprivation. It was barely coherent. Each accusation hit like a hammer. Ethan wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was doing his best, that he had no choice, that every single thing she'd listed had a reason behind it. But the words wouldn't come. He was too tired, too empty. "I'm trying," he said finally, and hated how defeated he sounded. "I'm trying as hard as I can." "I know." The snap had left Victoria's voice, replaced by something quieter, something that sounded almost like understanding. "That's the problem." She moved to his couch, carefully stepping over a stuffed elephant that had seen better days, and sat down with careful precision. After a moment's hesitation, she gestured to the chair across from her. Ethan sank into it, too tired to remain standing. "Tell me about your wife," Victoria said. The shift in topic disoriented him. "Sarah, what does she have to do with—" "Everything." Victoria's gaze didn't waver. "She died 14 months ago. Car accident. You took 3 days of bereavement leave, then came back to work full-time. You've been with the company for 6 years, and your personnel file shows you've never taken a sick day. Not one. Since Sarah's death, you've accumulated 732 hours of unused vacation time." Ethan's throat tightened. "I can't afford to take time off. I have a daughter to support, medical bills, the mortgage—" "You're salaried. Taking vacation wouldn't affect your income." "But it would affect my position, my visibility. If I'm not there, someone else is. Someone who doesn't have to leave at 5:30 to pick up their kid from after-school care. Someone who can stay late for client drinks or come in early for breakfast meetings." The words tumbled out, all the fears he'd been swallowing for months finally finding voice. "I can't compete if I'm not present. I can't afford to be seen as weak or unreliable or human." Victoria's eyebrow arched. "You can't afford to be human?" "Not when I'm all Lily has left." Ethan's voice cracked. He pressed his palms against his eyes, fighting back the exhaustion and emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "You don't understand. Every day is a calculation. Can I sleep 3 hours and still function? Can I skip lunch to finish this report? Can I let Lily have cereal for dinner again because I don't have the energy to cook? Every single thing is a choice between failing her or failing at work. And I can't fail at either because failing at work means we lose the apartment and the insurance and everything she needs to be okay." Silence stretched between them. When Ethan finally lowered his hands, he found Victoria studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You think you're protecting her," she said quietly, "by destroying yourself." "I'm doing what I have to do." "No." Victoria leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "You're drowning, and you've been drowning for so long that you've forgotten what breathing feels like. You've normalized a state of constant crisis. You're in pure survival mode, and you think that's what strength looks like. Ethan wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Because she was right. He knew she was right. He just didn't know what else to do. I was married once, Victoria said, and the admission shocked him into attention. In 6 years at the company, he'd never heard her mention anything personal. She was a figure of pure professional competence, the kind of executive who seemed to exist only in boardrooms and strategy sessions. His name was David. We met in business school, married young, built careers together. She paused, her gaze distant. He died 8 years ago. Heart attack, 41 years old. I found him in our bathroom at 6 in the morning. I'm so sorry, Ethan managed. The words felt inadequate. Victoria acknowledged them with a slight nod. I took 4 days off. Then I came back to work. I had a company to run, investors to answer to, employees depending on me. I worked 16-hour days, slept at the office, told myself that staying busy was healthy, that throwing myself into work was better than falling apart. Her jaw tightened. Within a year, I'd gained 40 pounds, developed an ulcer, and had 2 close friends tell me they couldn't watch me self-destruct anymore. I ignored them both. I knew better, you see. I was handling it. I was functional. Ethan recognized his own rationalizations in her words, and the recognition made his chest ache. I collapsed at my desk on a Wednesday afternoon, Victoria continued. Stress-induced arrhythmia. Spent 3 days in the hospital while doctors explained that I was actively killing myself, that my body was shutting down from sustained abuse, that if I didn't change, I'd be dead before 50. She met his eyes. And you know what the worst part was? I went back to work the day after I was discharged, because I didn't know who I was if I wasn't working. I didn't know how to exist in the empty space where grief lived. The apartment felt too small suddenly, too quiet except for the ambient sounds of the building settling and distant traffic. It took me 2 more years to figure out that working myself to death wasn't honor or dedication or strength. It was fear. Fear of feeling, fear of stopping long enough to realize how much I'd lost. Victoria's voice remained steady, but Ethan heard the pain beneath it. And when I finally did stop, when I finally let myself grieve properly, I realized I'd wasted 2 years of my life running from the only thing that could actually heal me. Time, rest, permission to be broken for a while. Ethan's vision blurred. He blinked hard. I don't have that luxury. Lily needs a father who's present, not a ghost who exists on 4 hours of sleep and functions on pure adrenaline. Victoria's voice sharpened again. She needs a parent who can actually engage with her, not someone so exhausted that he forgets to buy her clothes that fit. She needs you to be okay, Ethan, and you're not okay. The use of his first name startled him. In 6 years, Victoria had never called him anything but Mr. Brooks. You said I was fired. Ethan's voice came out small. From your current role. Yes. Victoria pulled a folder from her bag. He hadn't even noticed she'd brought one, and set it on the coffee table between them. Effective immediately, you're being removed from all client-facing responsibilities. Your workload is being reduced by 60%. The projects you're currently managing will be redistributed to your team with full credit to you for groundwork already completed. Ethan's stomach dropped. You're demoting me. I'm restructuring your position to match what a human being can sustainably handle. Victoria opened the folder, revealing documents he was too panicked to read. You'll maintain your current salary. Your title will remain Senior Strategic Analyst, but your responsibilities will shift to long-term research and internal consulting, projects with flexible deadlines. Work that can be done remotely when necessary. A schedule that allows you to actually parent your daughter. I don't understand. Ethan's hands shook. Why would you keep me at the same salary if I'm doing less work? Because your value to this company isn't measured by how many hours you can survive on minimal sleep. Victoria's expression softened slightly. You're brilliant, Ethan. Your strategic analyses have shaped 3 of our most successful campaigns. The Mercer projection model you developed saved us from a catastrophic investment. You have institutional knowledge and creative problem-solving skills that are irreplaceable. What you don't have is the capacity to continue at an unsustainable pace without eventually collapsing. She pushed the folder toward him. This isn't charity, it's pragmatic business. I can either restructure your role now while you're still functional, or I can wait 6 months until you have a breakdown and I lose you entirely. I've seen this pattern before. I've lived it. And I'm not going to watch another talented person destroy themselves because they think survival mode is a sustainable life strategy. Ethan stared at the folder like it might bite him. What if I say no? Then you're actually fired. Victoria's voice went cold. Because I will not enable your self-destruction. I will not be complicit in the slow-motion suicide you're committing. If you can't accept help, then you can't work here. Those are your options. The ultimatum hung in the air between them. Ethan's mind raced through calculations, trying to find the angle, the catch, the hidden cost. This didn't happen in the corporate world. Executives didn't show up at midnight to force work-life balance on struggling employees. There had to be something he was missing. Why do you care? The question came out before he could stop it. You've barely spoken to me outside of meetings in 6 years. Why does this matter to you? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that suggested old wounds. Because no one did this for me. Because David died, and I threw myself into work, and everyone around me either didn't notice or didn't care enough to intervene. Because I wasted years of my life proving I could function on empty, and I will never get those years back. She stood, gathering her bag. And because that little girl in the next room deserves better than a father who's too exhausted to live. She moved toward the door, then paused. You have until Monday to review the terms and sign the restructuring agreement. Take the weekend. Sleep. Spend time with your daughter. Think about whether you want to keep surviving or whether you're ready to start living again. Ethan followed her to the door on autopilot. His thoughts were a chaotic mess, bouncing between relief and terror and confusion. I don't know how to do this differently. Victoria looked back at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived, he saw something almost gentle in her expression. Neither did I. But you figure it out. One day at a time. One choice at a time. She paused. The first choice is sleep, Ethan. Real sleep. Not collapsing for 4 hours before your alarm goes off. Let yourself rest. Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing down the hallway toward the elevator. Ethan stood in his doorway, watching her disappear, the folder clutched in his hands like a life preserver he didn't know whether to grab or throw away. Daddy? He turned to find Lily standing in the hallway again, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She looked scared. Are we in trouble? Ethan crossed the space between them and scooped her up, holding her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. No, baby, we're not in trouble. Did you lose your job? He carried her back to her bedroom, settling her into bed and pulling the blankets up around her shoulders. My job is changing a little bit, but it's going to be okay. Better than okay, maybe. Is the pretty lady mad at you? Ethan thought about Victoria's expression, the careful control, the pain beneath it. No, I think she's trying to help us. Lily's eyes were already drooping. That's good. She seemed nice for a grown-up. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Yeah, maybe she is. He stayed until Lily's breathing evened out into sleep, then made his way back to the living room. The folder sat on the coffee table where Victoria had left it. He picked it up, carried it to the couch, and began to read. The terms were exactly as she'd described. Reduced hours, flexible scheduling, remote work options, maintained salary and title, support staff assigned to help manage his existing projects during the transition. There was even a clause about emergency parental leave, discretionary days he could use without penalty for sick children or school events. It was everything he'd needed for the past 14 months and hadn't known how to ask for. Ethan set the folder down and looked around his apartment with fresh eyes. Really looked at it for the first time in months. The mess. The neglect. The evidence of a life that had become pure function without any joy. When had he last read Lily a bedtime story instead of just tucking her in and returning to his laptop? When had he last cooked a real meal? When had he last done anything that wasn't purely utilitarian? Victoria was right. He'd forgotten how to breathe without purpose. He'd forgotten how to live instead of just survive. His phone sat on the arm of the couch, the screen dark. On impulse, he picked it up and opened his email. 243 unread messages. His fingers hovered over the icon, muscle memory ready to engage, to start triaging, to slip back into the comfortable rhythm of constant productivity. Instead, he set the phone down and stood up. He walked to the kitchen and began washing the dishes in the sink, not because it was efficient or necessary, but because the warm water felt good on his hands, because the simple mechanical action of cleaning felt like reclaiming something. The dishes took 20 minutes. He didn't rush. He didn't think about anything else. He just washed dishes. When the sink was empty and the counter cleared, he moved to the laundry basket, folded clothes, put them away, organized Lily's homework into neat piles, threw away the energy drink cans, closed his laptop without opening it. By the time he finished, it was past 1 in the morning, and the apartment looked like a place where people actually lived instead of just survived. Ethan stood in the middle of his living room and felt something he hadn't felt in months, a sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with work metrics or performance reviews. He should have been exhausted. He'd been awake for almost 20 hours. But instead of immediately heading to bed, he found himself pulling out his phone again. Not for email, for the Photos app he hadn't opened in weeks. Sarah's face smiled up at him from the screen, frozen in a moment at the beach 2 summers ago. Lily was a toddler in the image, sandy and sunburned and laughing. Sarah's arm was around Ethan's waist, her head on his shoulder. They looked happy. They looked like people who knew how to live. The grief hit him like it always did, sharp and sudden and overwhelming. But this time, instead of pushing it away, instead of diving into work to escape it, Ethan let himself feel it. He sat on the couch and looked at photos of his wife and let himself miss her. Let himself cry for the first time in months. Let himself be broken for a little while. When the tears finally stopped, it was nearly 2 in the morning. Ethan felt hollowed out but somehow lighter. He set his phone aside, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Real bed. Not passing out at his desk or on the couch with his laptop still open. For the first time in 14 months, he slept without setting an alarm. He woke to sunlight streaming through his window and the smell of something burning. Panic jolted him upright. The clock read 8:47. He'd slept almost 7 hours. Lily! He bolted to the kitchen and found his daughter standing on a chair at the stove, attempting to make pancakes. Badly. There was batter everywhere. The counter, the floor, her pajamas. The pan was smoking slightly. "Lily, get down from there!" Ethan rushed forward, turning off the burner and lifting her away from the stove. "You know you're not supposed to cook by yourself." His daughter's lower lip trembled. "You were sleeping. I didn't want to wake you up. I thought I could make breakfast like Mommy used to." The fight went out of him immediately. Ethan set her down gently and crouched to her level. "That was very sweet, baby, but also very dangerous. What if you'd burned yourself?" "I was careful." Lily's voice was small. "Are you mad?" Ethan looked at the disaster zone of his kitchen, at his daughter's pancake-battered pajamas, at the genuine effort to do something kind. He thought about Victoria's words, about being present instead of just functional. "No," he said finally. "I'm not mad, but let's make a deal. From now on, we cook together, okay?" Lily's face brightened. "Really?" "Really. In fact, let's start right now. Let me show you how Mommy taught me to make pancakes." They spent the next hour in the kitchen, making a mess and laughing and burning only 2 pancakes instead of all of them. Lily chattered about school and her friends and a book she was reading, and Ethan realized he didn't know most of these details. Somewhere in the past months, he'd stopped asking about her day beyond cursory questions. He'd been physically present but mentally absent, always half-focused on work even during the precious hours he had with her. They ate their imperfect pancakes at the table, not in front of the TV, not with Ethan's laptop open beside them, just together. Lily told him about a boy in her class who'd pulled her hair and how she'd told the teacher, and Ethan actually listened instead of nodding on autopilot while thinking about his next meeting. "Daddy?" Lily asked, syrup on her chin. "Are you okay? You seem different." "Different how?" She scrunched up her nose, thinking, "Like you're actually here." The observation hit harder than it should have. "Yeah, baby, I think I am, finally." After breakfast, they cleaned up together. Then, instead of telling Lily to play quietly while he worked, Ethan suggested they go to the park. Her shocked delight made his chest ache with guilt. When had going to the park become a novelty instead of a normal part of their weekends? They spent 3 hours at the playground. Ethan pushed Lily on the swings until his arms ached. They played on the jungle gym, fed ducks at the pond, got ice cream from the vendor even though it was only October and too cold for frozen treats. Ethan's phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket with work emails, notifications, messages. He ignored all of them. By the time they got home, it was late afternoon. Lily crashed on the couch, exhausted and happy. Ethan covered her with a blanket and finally allowed himself to check his phone. 63 work emails, 12 texts from colleagues, 3 voicemails. All of it felt distant and unimportant compared to the sound of his daughter's even breathing as she napped beside him. One email stood out from the others. It was from Victoria, sent at 2 a.m. The subject line read, "Additional resources." Ethan opened it. "Mr. Brooks, after our conversation, I realized I failed to provide adequate support resources. I've attached contact information for 3 excellent therapists who specialize in grief counseling and parental stress management. I've also included information about the company's employee assistance program, which covers 10 therapy sessions annually at no cost to you. Additionally, I've arranged for you to meet with Maria Chen from HR on Monday morning. She'll walk you through all available parental support benefits, including backup childcare services and flexible work arrangements. Take the weekend. Be with your daughter. We'll handle everything else on Monday." V. Hail below the signature was a personal note, separate from the formal email. P.S. It gets easier. Not quickly, not linearly, but it does get easier. The fact that you're still trying, still fighting to be there for your daughter, means you're stronger than you think. Don't mistake exhaustion for weakness. Ethan read the email 3 times, then he opened the attachments, information about therapists, benefit programs, support services he'd never known existed, resources that might have made the past 14 months bearable if he'd known to ask for them. He saved all of it. Then he opened a new email and began to type. "Ms. Hale, thank you for last night, for the resources, for caring enough to intervene when you didn't have to. I don't know how to do this differently yet, but I'm willing to try. I'll sign the restructuring agreement on Monday. I owe you an apology for falling asleep in meetings, missing deadlines, and generally being a disaster for the past months. You would have been justified in actually firing me. The fact that you chose to help instead says more about your leadership than I think you realize. I'm taking the weekend, really taking it. Lily and I are going to the museum tomorrow, then maybe the library. Normal things I should have been doing all along. Thank you for reminding me what that looks like. Ethan Brooks." He sent it before he could second-guess himself. Then he closed his laptop, set his phone on silent, and settled in to watch whatever cartoon Lily wanted when she woke up. The weekend passed in a blur of normalcy that felt revolutionary. Museum on Sunday, library after, grocery shopping where Ethan actually bought fresh vegetables instead of frozen dinners and energy drinks. Cooking dinner together, reading bedtime stories, having conversations that weren't rushed or distracted. By Monday morning, Ethan felt like a different person. Still tired, 7 hours a night wasn't going to immediately undo months of sleep deprivation, but present in a way he hadn't been since Sarah died. He dropped Lily at school, kissed her goodbye, and watched her run to join her friends. She turned back to wave at him, and he waved back, staying until she disappeared into the building instead of rushing off immediately. The office felt different when he arrived. Or maybe he felt different. He went straight to HR, where Maria Chen greeted him with a warmth that suggested Victoria had briefed her thoroughly. They spent 90 minutes going over benefits, support services, flexible arrangements. Ethan signed paperwork, asked questions, took notes. Victoria's office was on the top floor, separated from the general work areas by glass walls that managed to be both transparent and isolating. Ethan had only been in it a handful of times in 6 years. He knocked on the open door frame and she looked up from her computer. "Mr. Brooks, please, come in." He entered, suddenly nervous, the restructuring agreement folder in his hands. "I wanted to deliver this in person." Victoria took the folder, reviewed the signed documents, and nodded. "Good. Maria will coordinate with your team on project transitions. You'll work from home the rest of this week while we redistribute responsibilities. I want you to use that time to establish routines that actually work for you and Lily, not just survival routines, sustainable ones. I will. Ethan hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why me? You have 200 employees. How many of them are struggling the same way I was? Why did you personally intervene? Victoria was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Ethan? I see someone who fought so hard to be both parent and professional that you forgot you're also just a person. Someone who thought strength meant never showing weakness, never asking for help, never admitting when you're drowning. She paused. I see who I was 8 years ago, and I can't go back and save that version of myself. But I can do this. For you. For others who need it. Thank you, Ethan said quietly, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself anymore. Victoria stood and extended her hand. He shook it, surprised by the firmness of her grip. Don't waste this, Mr. Brooks. Don't fall back into old patterns because they're comfortable. Build something better, for yourself and for your daughter. I will. As Ethan left her office and headed home in the middle of a Monday morning, because he could now, he felt something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not quite hope. Not yet. But possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, the knock on his door at midnight hadn't been the end of his world. Maybe it had been the beginning of finding his way back into it. The first week of the new arrangement felt like learning to walk again after years of running. Ethan worked from his apartment, his laptop set up at the kitchen table instead of balanced on his knees at 3 a.m. The silence was disorienting. No office chatter, no meetings to rush to, just him, his research projects, and the strange luxury of being able to stop for lunch. On Wednesday afternoon, his phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. Mr. Brooks, how are you adjusting? Ethan glanced around his clean kitchen, at the meal prep containers he'd organized on Sunday, at the schedule he'd posted on the refrigerator, color-coded blocks for work, for Lily, for himself. It's strange. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. There is no other shoe. This is the new normal. Are you managing the workload? Honestly, I finished today's tasks in 4 hours. I don't know what to do with the rest of my time. Victoria's laugh was dry. Most people would celebrate that. You sound disturbed by it. I feel lazy, unproductive. You feel human. There's a difference. Papers rustled on her end. I'm sending you a new project, long-term market analysis for the European expansion. It's complex, requires deep research, and the deadline is 3 months out. I want thorough work, not fast work. Quality over speed. Can you handle that? Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Trust. She was trusting him with something important despite restructuring his role. Yes. Absolutely. Good. I'll have the briefing materials sent over by end of day. She paused. Ethan, I need you to understand something. This isn't charity. I'm not keeping you around out of pity. You're valuable precisely because you think deeply about problems, but that kind of thinking requires space and rest. The old pace wasn't making you more productive. It was making you sloppy. The words stung, but they were true. I know. I'm working on it. I know you are. Keep me updated on your progress. And Ethan, pick up your daughter from school yourself today. Be there when she comes out. Watch her face light up when she sees you. The line went dead before he could respond. Ethan stared at his phone, then checked the time. 2:30. School let out at 3:15. He'd been planning to work until 5, then rushed to the aftercare program that stayed open until 6. The idea of actually being there, waiting at the gate like the other parents, felt foreign and essential at the same time. He saved his work, closed his laptop, and grabbed his jacket. The elementary school parking lot was already filling with cars when he arrived. Parents clustered in small groups, chatting while they waited. Ethan recognized a few faces from previous pickups, the rare occasions when he'd managed to leave work early enough. A woman with red hair waved at him. Ethan, right? Lily's dad? He nodded, trying to place her. Yes. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. Jennifer, my daughter Emma is in Lily's class. We've met at a few school events. She smiled warmly. I haven't seen you at pickup in a while. Work has been intense. The excuse felt automatic. But I'm trying to be here more often now. That's great. The kids really notice when we show up. Emma talks about Lily all the time. They're good friends. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He didn't know who Lily's friends were beyond names mentioned in passing. They should have a play date sometime. Jennifer's face brightened. I'd love that. Are you free this Saturday? We're going to the Children's Museum. You and Lily should join us. The old Ethan would have made excuses, would have checked his calendar and found reasons why Saturday wouldn't work. The new Ethan, the one trying to figure out how to actually live, heard himself say, "That sounds perfect. What time?" They exchanged numbers just as the school doors opened and children poured out. Lily emerged in a cluster of girls, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Ethan with visible shock. "Daddy!" She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "You're here! You're actually here!" The joy in her voice broke something in him. "I'm here, baby. How was school?" "It was good. We learned about fractions, and I got 100 on my spelling test, and Emma said I could come to her birthday party next month." The words tumbled out in an excited rush. "Can I go, please?" "Of course you can go." Ethan smoothed her wild curls, struck by how tall she was getting. When had that happened? "In fact, we're going to the museum with Emma and her mom on Saturday." Lily's squeal of delight drew smiles from nearby parents. She grabbed his hand, chattering about her day as they walked to the car. Ethan listened, really listened, asking questions and laughing at her stories. The drive home took 15 minutes. He didn't check his phone once. That evening, they cooked dinner together. Lily helped measure ingredients for stir-fry, her tongue poking out in concentration as she counted tablespoons of soy sauce. They ate at the table, talking about fractions and spelling and whether unicorns could be real if nobody had found them yet. After dinner, Ethan helped with homework instead of sitting nearby with his laptop open. He read her essay about what she wanted to be when she grew up, a veterinarian who only treated magical creatures, and told her it was brilliant. They played a board game that lasted an hour. He gave her a bath, read 3 chapters of her current favorite book, and tucked her in with actual time and attention instead of distracted exhaustion. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was drowsy. "I like when you're home." "Me too, sweetheart." "Are you going to keep being home, or is it going to go back to before?" The question hit him hard. Before, when he'd been a ghost in his own life. "I'm going to keep being home, I promise." She smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan stayed, watching her breathe, marveling at how much he'd missed by being too tired to pay attention. The gap in her front teeth from the one she'd lost 3 weeks ago, he'd barely noticed. The new freckles across her nose, the way she still slept with the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her when she was born. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. "Did you pick her up?" Ethan smiled and typed back, "Yes." Her face did light up. "Thank you." The response came immediately. "Good. That's what you're working for. Remember that." The next few weeks developed a rhythm. Ethan worked from home 4 days a week, went into the office on Fridays for meetings and face-to-face collaboration. His projects were challenging but manageable. The European expansion analysis required deep research into market trends, regulatory environments, cultural factors. It was the kind of work he'd always loved. Strategic, complex, requiring real thought instead of reactive task completion. He established routines. Morning coffee while Lily ate breakfast. Drop off at school. Work until 2:30. Pick up. Homework and dinner. Evening time together. Bedtime stories. Then instead of diving back into work, he'd spend an hour on something for himself. Reading. Watching a show. Sometimes just sitting quietly. Learning to be comfortable with stillness. The exhaustion began to lift slowly, layers peeling away to reveal someone he'd almost forgotten existed. He had energy for conversations, patience for Lily's questions, capacity for joy instead of just function. On Friday morning, he went into the office for the weekly strategy meeting. His team greeted him warmly. Marcus, who'd covered his accounts during the transition, and 2 junior analysts who'd helped redistribute his workload. "Brooks, good to see you, man." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. You look human again. I feel human again. Ethan settled into his usual chair. How's the Parsons contract coming? Solid. We closed it yesterday. The client was thrilled with your initial framework. I just executed your strategy. Marcus grinned. You made it easy. Before Ethan could respond, the conference room door opened and Victoria entered. The room shifted subtly, everyone straightening in their chairs. She commanded attention without demanding it, presence honed over decades of leadership. Good morning. Let's make this efficient. I know everyone has actual work to do. Victoria pulled up the agenda on the screen. Marcus, Parsons update first. The meeting progressed smoothly. Ethan contributed when relevant, his mind clear enough to make connections he'd have missed in his previous state of constant exhaustion. He noticed Victoria watching him at one point, a slight nod of approval when he presented a solution to a market penetration problem that had stumped the team. After the meeting, she pulled him aside. Walk with me. They moved through the office toward the executive floor, Victoria's heels clicking against the polished floor. Employees greeted her with respect edged with wariness. She had a reputation for brilliance and high standards that bordered on impossible. Your European analysis preliminary report was excellent, Victoria said without preamble. Thorough, insightful, exactly what I needed. More importantly, it was clear you'd actually thought about the problems instead of just compiling data. Thank you. It's good work. I'm enjoying it. I can tell. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. She stopped outside her office, turning to face him fully. You're wasted in pure analysis, Ethan. You think strategically. You see patterns others miss. You ask the right questions. Those are leadership skills, not just technical ones. Ethan felt uncertainty creep in. I thought we were reducing my responsibilities. We were. We did. Your workload is sustainable now, but that doesn't mean you can't grow into something different, something better suited to your actual strengths. Victoria gestured to her office. Come in. I want to show you something. Her office was exactly as he remembered, sleek, organized, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She pulled up a file on her computer and turned the screen toward him. I'm creating a new position, Director of Strategic Innovation. Someone who works across departments, identifies opportunities, develops long-term strategies. It requires deep thinking, not constant firefighting, flexible schedule, mostly remote, with occasional in-person collaborative sessions. She looked at him steadily. I want you to consider it. Not now. 6 months from now when you've fully stabilized. But I'm telling you now so you have something to work toward. Ethan stared at the job description, his heart racing. It was everything he'd want in a role. Intellectual challenge without the crushing pressure, influence without the constant availability demands. Victoria, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Just think about it. Build your life back. Take care of yourself and Lily. Get therapy. Learn to function as a whole person instead of a work machine. Then, if you want it, it's yours. She closed the file. You have potential, Ethan. Real potential. But only if you stop trying to kill yourself proving your worth. He left her office feeling lighter and more terrified than he'd felt in months. Possibilities stretched out in front of him, vast and uncertain. For the first time since Sarah's death, he could imagine a future that wasn't just survival. Saturday arrived bright and cold. Ethan and Lily met Jennifer and Emma at the Children's Museum at 10. The girls raced ahead, giggling, while the adults followed at a more sedate pace. So how long have you been at your company? Jennifer asked as they wandered through an exhibit on simple machines. 6 years. You? I'm a nurse, labor and delivery at County General, 12-hour shifts, which is exhausting, but at least I have a clear schedule. I imagine corporate work is harder to compartmentalize. Ethan laughed without humor. That's an understatement. I'm learning, though, trying to set better boundaries. That's good. It's so important for the kids. Emma's dad died when she was 3. Heart defect nobody knew about. It's been just us for 4 years now. Jennifer's voice remained steady, but Ethan heard the pain beneath it. The first year, I worked every shift I could get. Thought staying busy would help. It just made me miserable and made Emma clingy and anxious. How did you stop? Therapy. And Emma's teacher pulled me aside one day and told me my daughter needed me present, not just physically there. It was a wake-up call. She smiled. We figured it out together. Some days are still hard, but we're okay now. You and Lily will be too. They spent 3 hours at the museum. The girls played in the water exhibit, the science lab, the art studio. Ethan helped Emma build a bridge while Lily constructed an elaborate pulley system. Jennifer took photos, capturing moments of pure childhood joy. At lunch in the museum cafe, Lily and Emma chatted about everything and nothing, their friendship easy and genuine. Ethan found himself relaxing in a way he couldn't remember experiencing in months. No pressure, no deadlines, just being present in a moment with his daughter and new friends. We should do this regularly, Jennifer said. Monthly museum trips or park days. Give the girls time together and give us adult conversation that isn't work-related. I'd really like that, Ton. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from hours of play. Ethan glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her face peaceful, and felt gratitude so intense it was almost painful. This was what he'd been missing. This was what Victoria had given back to him. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Victoria. How was the museum? Perfect. Thank you for pushing me to do this. I didn't push you to do anything. I just removed the obstacles you'd built yourself. You did the rest. The following week brought the first real test of his new boundaries. A crisis erupted with a major client, technical failures, missed deadlines, potential contract cancellation. The kind of emergency that would have consumed Ethan completely in his previous life. Marcus called him at 4 p.m., panic in his voice. Brooks, we need you. The Silverman account is imploding. Can you come in? Ethan looked at his watch, then at Lily doing homework at the kitchen table. What specifically do you need from me? Strategy? Damage control? You built the relationship with them. They trust you. Can it wait until tomorrow? I can come in at 7 before I drop Lily at school. Ethan, this is urgent. We're losing them. The old fear rose up. If he wasn't available, he wasn't valuable. If he maintained boundaries, he'd be seen as uncommitted. He opened his mouth to cave, to say he'd figure something out, to sacrifice the evening with his daughter for work that would always demand more. Then he thought about Victoria's words, about the fact that she'd promoted the idea of him for director while knowing he maintained boundaries, about the promise he'd made to Lily that things would be different. I can't come in tonight, but I can join a video call at 8 after Lily's in bed, and I'll be in the office at 7 tomorrow morning. That's what I can offer. Silence on the other end. Okay. I'll set up the call. When Marcus hung up, Ethan felt sick. He'd just potentially damaged his career, proven he wasn't a team player, shown he couldn't handle pressure. His phone rang again. Victoria. I heard about Silverman. Marcus is panicking. Are you available for a call tonight? Yes, at 8. I told Marcus I'd join then. Good. That's all we need from you. I'll handle the rest. She paused. Ethan, you made the right call. This isn't your emergency to solve alone, and you're allowed to have boundaries. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. The relief was overwhelming. Thank you. 7 a.m. tomorrow works for you? Yes. Perfect. I'll see you then. Now go help your daughter with her homework. The video call at 8 lasted 90 minutes. Ethan joined from his couch, Lily asleep in her room, and walked the team through relationship repair strategies, contract restructuring options, and communication approaches. His mind was clear, his solution solid. By 9:30, they had a plan. Marcus messaged him privately after, Thanks for this. Sorry for the pressure earlier. I forgot you're still allowed to have a life. We're all allowed to have lives. We just forget sometimes. At 7 the next morning, Ethan was in the conference room with Victoria and the senior team. They executed the Silverman recovery plan flawlessly. By noon, the client had agreed to a contract extension with modified terms that actually improved their position. Crisis averted. Victoria pulled him aside afterward. You handled that perfectly. Clear thinking, solid strategy, appropriate boundaries. That's exactly the kind of leadership I'm looking for in the innovation director role. I almost caved last night. Almost dropped everything to rush in. But you didn't. That's growth. She smiled, a rare expression that transformed her entire face. Keep growing, Ethan. You're getting there. Over the next month, Ethan settled fully into his new rhythm. He attended 2 therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the counselors Victoria had recommended. She was gentle and direct, helping him process grief he'd buried, guilt he'd carried, fear he'd internalized. "You're allowed to be happy again," Dr. Chin told him in their third session. "Sarah wouldn't have wanted you to suffer forever. She'd want you to live." The permission felt revolutionary. He started allowing himself small joys, morning coffee that he actually tasted instead of just consuming for caffeine, music while he cooked, laughter that came easily when Lily told terrible knock-knock jokes. He joined a grief support group for single parents. Sitting in a church basement on Thursday evenings, listening to other people's stories of loss and survival, he realized he wasn't alone. Other people understood the impossible balancing act, the guilt, the exhaustion, the slow climb back to functionality. A woman named Patricia, whose husband had died in a construction accident, approached him after one meeting. "You're doing better than when you first came. I can see it in your face." "I feel better, like I'm actually present in my life again." That's the goal. We don't move on from grief. We move forward with it. It gets less heavy over time. She squeezed his arm gently. "Keep going. You're doing great." In November, Jennifer invited Ethan and Lily to Thanksgiving dinner. "It'll be small, just us, my parents, and my brother's family. You shouldn't be alone on holidays." Ethan's first instinct was to decline, to maintain distance, to not impose. But Lily's hopeful expression stopped him. "We'd love to come. Can I bring anything?" "Just yourselves." Thanksgiving was warm and chaotic, filled with food and conversation and children running through the house. Lily played with Emma and Jennifer's nephews, her laughter ringing through the rooms. Ethan helped in the kitchen, falling into easy conversation with Jennifer's mother about gardening and her father about vintage cars. "You're good for Jennifer," her mother said quietly while they prepared pies. "She's been isolated since Emma's father died. Threw herself into work, pushed away friends. Sound familiar?" Ethan smiled ruefully. "Very. It's good you're both finding your way back, and those girls adore each other. That's special." As he drove home that evening, Lily drowsy in the back seat and leftover pie on the passenger seat, Ethan felt something that had been absent for over a year. Contentment. Not happiness exactly. Grief still lived in him, a constant presence. But contentment in the moment, in the life he was building, in the father he was becoming. December arrived with the first snow. Ethan took Lily to pick out a Christmas tree, letting her choose a slightly crooked one because she insisted it needed love. They decorated it together, hanging ornaments Sarah had collected over the years. Some made him cry. He let himself cry, and Lily hugged him, and they talked about her mother in ways they hadn't been able to before. "I miss Mommy," Lily said, her small hand in his as they sat on the couch admiring their lopsided tree. "Me too, baby. Every day. But it's okay to still be happy sometimes, right? Even though we miss her?" Ethan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Yes, it's absolutely okay. Mommy would want us to be happy. I think she'd like our tree. I think she'd love it." On the last Friday before the holiday break, Victoria called him into her office. When he arrived, she gestured to the chair across from her desk. "6 months," she said without preamble. "It's been 6 months since that night I showed up at your door." Ethan nodded. "Best firing I ever received." She smiled. "You've exceeded every expectation, Ethan. Your European analysis became the framework for our entire expansion strategy. Your work on the Silverman recovery saved that relationship and improved our contract terms. You've mentored 2 junior analysts. You've maintained perfect boundaries while producing exceptional work." She leaned forward. "The innovation director position is yours if you want it, starting in January." His heart raced. "I want it." "Good. We'll make the announcement next week. It comes with a salary increase, dedicated team, and full schedule autonomy. You'll report directly to me. Your focus will be long-term strategic thinking, not crisis management. Build the kind of work life that sustains you and serves the company. That's the job." Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you, Victoria, for everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For refusing to let me destroy myself. For giving me my life back. You did the hard work, Ethan. I just removed the obstacles." She stood, extending her hand. "Welcome to the leadership team. You've earned this." As he shook her hand, Ethan thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, exhausted, desperate, barely surviving. And he thought about the man he was becoming, present, purposeful, capable of both grief and joy. The transformation hadn't been easy or linear. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, days when old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But he'd kept choosing differently, kept choosing presence over pressure, kept choosing to live instead of just survive. And somehow, impossibly, it had led here, to a career that fit his life instead of consuming it, to a relationship with his daughter built on attention instead of distraction, to a future that held possibility instead of just obligation. He left Victoria's office and immediately called Lily's school. "This is Ethan Brooks, Lily's father. I'd like to have lunch with her today if that's allowed." "Of course, Mr. Brooks. We love when parents join for lunch. We'll let her know you're coming." He stopped at Lily's favorite sandwich shop, bought her favorite order, and showed up at the school cafeteria at noon. Her face when she saw him, pure, uncomplicated joy, was worth everything, worth every hard conversation with Victoria, worth every therapy session, worth every moment of choosing differently. "Daddy, you're here!" "I'm here, baby. I brought sandwiches. Want to eat together?" They sat at the kid-sized table, eating lunch surrounded by second graders, and Lily chattered about her day with the enthusiasm of someone who knew her father was actually listening. Other parents watched them with knowing smiles, recognizing the precious ordinariness of the moment. This, Ethan thought, this is what I was working for all along. I just forgot to actually live it. After lunch, Ethan returned to the office with a lightness in his chest that felt almost unfamiliar. He was drafting the transition plan for his new role when his desk phone rang. The receptionist's voice came through crisp and professional. "Mr. Brooks, there's a gentleman here to see Ms. Hale, but she's in meetings all afternoon. He says it's urgent and personal. He's asking if anyone on the leadership team can meet with him. Your name came up." Ethan frowned. Did he say what it's about? "He says he's her brother." The surprise was immediate. In 6 years, Victoria had never mentioned family, never referenced siblings or parents or anyone beyond the late husband she'd mentioned once. Ethan glanced at his calendar, saw nothing critical, and made a decision. "Send him up to conference room B. I'll be there in 5 minutes." The man waiting in the conference room was perhaps 50, with Victoria's same sharp cheekbones and intelligent eyes, but where she radiated controlled power, he seemed diminished somehow. His suit was expensive but rumpled, his tie loosened, his hands restless on the table. "Mr. Brooks?" He stood, extending a hand. "Daniel Hale. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is irregular." "Not at all." Ethan shook his hand, noting the resemblance more clearly now. "Victoria's in back-to-back meetings until 6. Is there something I can help with, or would you prefer to wait?" Daniel's laugh was bitter. "I'm not sure she'll want to see me at all. We haven't spoken in 3 years." He sank back into his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. "I need her help. Financial trouble. Bad investments. Worse decisions. I'm about to lose everything, and she's the only person I know with the resources to bail me out." Ethan felt immediate discomfort. This was far outside his purview, personal territory he had no business navigating. "I really think you should wait for Victoria. This isn't something I can—" "I know. I just needed to talk to someone, to figure out what to say." Daniel rubbed his face. "She told me 3 years ago that if I didn't get my life together, she was done. No more bailouts, no more second chances. And I promised her I would. I promised and I failed, and now I'm here begging again." The raw honesty was uncomfortable. Ethan sat down across from him, uncertain but unable to just leave. "What happened?" "The usual story. Thought I had a sure thing. Tech startup, revolutionary product, guaranteed returns. Put everything into it. Borrowed against my house. Convinced friends to invest." Daniel's voice cracked. "It collapsed 2 months ago. Fraud at the executive level. We all lost everything. My wife left me last week. Took our daughter. I'm facing bankruptcy and possibly legal action from the people I brought into the investment." Ethan thought about his own desperation 6 months ago, the feeling of drowning with no lifeline visible. "I'm sorry, that's devastating. Victoria warned me. She always warns me. I'm the younger brother who never learned, who always thinks he knows better, who resents her success while constantly needing her to save me from my own stupidity. Daniel met Ethan's eyes. She's going to say no, isn't she? I don't know. That's between you and her. Ethan hesitated, then spoke carefully. But I do know she cares about the people in her life more than she shows. She intervened in my life 6 months ago when she had no obligation to. Saw I was drowning and threw me a lifeline I didn't know I needed. That sounds like Victoria, saving people whether they ask for it or not. Daniel's tone held affection despite the bitterness. When our parents died, she was 23. I was 18. She put herself through business school while working full-time and making sure I had everything I needed for college. Paid my tuition, bought my books, made sure I ate, and how did I repay her? By dropping out junior year to chase a get-rich-quick scheme that failed spectacularly. The door opened. Victoria stood in the threshold, her expression unreadable as she took in the scene. Daniel. Vicky. He stood slowly. I know you're busy. I know I have no right to be here. You're right. You don't. Victoria's voice was ice. I told you 3 years ago that I was done cleaning up your messes, that the next time you gambled away your stability, you'd face the consequences alone. I know, I remember. Daniel's shoulders sagged. I'm not asking you to fix this. I'm asking for advice, for help understanding my options. I've lost my wife, my home, my savings. I'm about to lose access to my daughter because I can't afford the custody lawyer. I just need guidance from someone who understands these things. Victoria looked at Ethan. Did he tell you what happened? Some of it. Did he tell you this is the 4th time that I've bailed him out of bad investments, gambling debts, and failed business ventures more times than I can count? That every time he promises to change and never does? Daniel flinched but didn't argue. Ethan felt trapped between them, witness to a family dynamic he had no context for. Victoria's anger was controlled but fierce, years of frustration compressed into crisp sentences. I should go, Ethan said, standing. This is private. Stay. Victoria's command was gentle but firm. Your leadership now. You should understand how I handle these situations. She turned back to her brother. I will not give you money, Daniel. I will not pay your debts or save your house or fund your legal battles. Do you understand? Yes. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. But I will give you something more valuable. I will give you the same thing I gave Ethan 6 months ago. Structure. Accountability. A path forward that doesn't involve self-destruction. Victoria moved into the room, her heels clicking with purpose. You'll meet with my financial advisor tomorrow. You'll create a realistic budget and debt repayment plan. You'll attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. You'll get therapy, and you'll report to me monthly on your progress. Daniel stared at her. Why would you do that after everything? Because you're my brother. Because I remember who took care of me after Mom and Dad died, before the addiction took over. Because everyone deserves a chance to become someone better than their worst moments. Victoria's expression softened fractionally. But this is the last time, Daniel. Not the last bailout. The last chance. If you sabotage this, we're done. Truly done. No more calls. No more visits. You'll be a stranger to me. Tears streamed down Daniel's face. I won't waste it. I swear. We'll see. Victoria pulled out her phone, typed something, then looked back at him. My assistant will send you the advisor's contact information. First appointment is tomorrow at 9. Don't be late. I won't. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. She nodded curtly. Daniel left, closing the door quietly behind him. Victoria stood motionless for a moment, her control absolute, before her shoulders dropped slightly. I'm sorry you had to witness that, she said without looking at Ethan. Don't apologize. Family is complicated. That's a generous way to describe enabling an addict for 20 years. Victoria moved to the window, staring out at the city. My therapist would say I have boundary issues with Daniel, that I confuse love with rescue, that I keep saving him because I couldn't save David. The admission was startling. Victoria never discussed her personal life, never showed vulnerability. Ethan approached carefully, maintaining respectful distance. You're giving him tools, not just money. That's different from enabling. Is it? Or am I setting him up to fail again so I can feel superior in my stability? Victoria's reflection in the window looked tired. I spent years in therapy learning to separate my worth from my ability to fix other people's problems. And yet here I am, restructuring my brother's life the same way I restructured yours. That's not the same thing. You saw me destroying myself through grief and overwork. You intervened because I needed help I couldn't ask for. That's compassion, not control. Victoria turned to face him. And what if I'm wrong? What if my version of help is just another form of arrogance, deciding I know what people need better than they do? Ethan considered this carefully. 6 months ago, he might have resented the implication. Now, with perspective and distance, he understood the complexity. When you showed up at my door, I was angry, humiliated, terrified. I thought you were destroying my life. He met her eyes steadily. But you were right. I was drowning and calling it swimming. Sometimes people need someone who cares enough to intervene even when it's uncomfortable, even when it risks the relationship. And Daniel? Am I right about him? I don't know. But I know you gave him the same thing you gave me. A choice. He can take the structure you're offering and build something better, or he can reject it and face the consequences. That's not control. That's tough love. Victoria studied him for a long moment. You've grown considerably in 6 months, Ethan. Not just professionally. You're thinking more complexly about human behavior. I have a good teacher. He smiled slightly. And a therapist who doesn't let me avoid hard questions. Dr. Chen is excellent. She helped me process David's death when I finally stopped running from it. Victoria returned to her desk, her professional mask sliding back into place with visible effort. Thank you for sitting with Daniel, and for the perspective. Anytime. Ethan paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think your brother is lucky to have you, even if he doesn't always show it. We'll see if he actually follows through. History suggests he won't. People can change. I'm proof of that. After Ethan left, Victoria sat alone in her office as evening shadows stretched across the floor. She pulled up a photo on her computer, one she kept hidden in a private folder. David smiled at her from the screen, young and healthy and whole. Next to him stood a younger Victoria, softer somehow, before grief had honed her into the executive people both admired and feared. I'm still trying to save people, she said to the empty room, still thinking I can fix everything if I just work hard enough. You'd tell me I'm being ridiculous, that I can't control outcomes, only my intentions. Her phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. Meeting scheduled for tomorrow. I won't let you down. She'd heard that before, many times, but she saved the message anyway, hope and skepticism warring in her chest. The following week, the company announced Ethan's promotion. The response was universally positive. Colleagues congratulated him. Junior analysts sought his mentorship. The executive team welcomed him with the easy camaraderie of equals. At the celebration lunch, Marcus raised his glass. To Ethan, the only person I know who got promoted by getting fired first. Laughter rippled around the table. Ethan caught Victoria's eye across the room. She lifted her glass fractionally, acknowledgement passing between them. Later, as the party wound down, Jennifer texted, Saw the announcement on LinkedIn. Congratulations. Emma and Lily want to celebrate with ice cream. You free Saturday? Absolutely. My treat. Deal. And Ethan? I'm really proud of you. The words settled warmly in his chest. He'd spent so long measuring success by exhaustion that praise for balance felt foreign but welcome. That Saturday, the four of them sat at the ice cream parlor, the girls making elaborate sundaes while the adults opted for simpler choices. Lily was covered in chocolate sauce and joy, chattering about a science project she wanted to build. Daddy, can we make a volcano? A real one that explodes? We can try. We'll need to research how to do it safely. I can help, Emma volunteered immediately. My uncle's a science teacher. He shows me cool experiments. Jennifer smiled at Ethan over her coffee. These two are going to either win a Nobel Prize or burn down the garage. I'm hoping for the former. Me too. Jennifer's expression turned more serious. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. When did you know you were ready to start living again instead of just surviving? After Sarah died, I mean. Ethan thought about that night 6 months ago, Victoria standing in his doorway with fire and compassion in her eyes. I don't think I knew. Someone else had to tell me, had to force me to see that I was destroying myself and calling it strength. Victoria? Your CEO? Yeah. She showed up at my apartment at midnight, told me I was fired, then restructured my entire life because she'd been where I was and knew I couldn't save myself. He watched Lily laugh at something Emma said. Best thing anyone ever did for me. Jennifer nodded slowly. I had a similar moment. Emma's teacher, like I mentioned. She pulled me aside and asked if I was okay, and I burst into tears in the school hallway. Just completely fell apart. She sat with me for an hour while I cried about how scared I was, how alone, how certain I was failing at everything. What did she say? That grief isn't failure, that asking for help isn't weakness, that Emma needed me whole more than she needed me perfect. Jennifer's eyes glistened. Simple things, but I needed to hear them from someone who cared enough to notice I was drowning. It's strange how isolation happens, Ethan said quietly, how you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone in your struggle. But we're not alone anymore. Jennifer gestured to their daughters. We've got them, and we've got friends who understand. That's worth protecting. They finished their ice cream and walked to the nearby park, letting the girls burn off sugar-fueled energy on the playground. Ethan and Jennifer sat on a bench, conversation flowing easily between them. She told him about her nursing work, the joy and heartbreak of labor and delivery. He shared about his new role, the excitement and nervousness of increased responsibility. You'll be great at it, Jennifer said with confidence. You're thoughtful. You see people clearly. Those are rare qualities in leadership. I'm learning from Victoria. She's brilliant but also complicated. Tough love personified. Sounds like exactly what you needed. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Lily ran over and climbed into Ethan's lap, tired and content. He wrapped his arms around her, breathing in her little girl scent of sunshine and playground dirt. This was the best day, Lily announced. Can we do it every week? We can certainly try, Ethan said, meeting Jennifer's smile. Please? Emma's my best friend, and Jennifer makes you laugh, and I like when you're happy. The simple observation hit him squarely in the chest. Children saw everything, noticed the shifts adults tried to hide. Lily had watched him transform from ghost to present father, and she was celebrating it with the straightforward honesty only kids possessed. I like when I'm happy too, Ethan said softly. And I'm working on being happy more often. Good, because Mommy would want you to be happy. She told me before she died that I had to make sure you smiled sometimes. Ethan's vision blurred. He pulled Lily closer, overcome by the memory of Sarah in those final days, already knowing she wouldn't survive the surgery, trying to prepare them both for a future without her. Jennifer's hand found his shoulder, a gentle gesture of understanding. Emma came over and hugged Lily, some silent communication passing between the girls that ended with both of them giggling and racing back to the swings. She's wise beyond her years, Jennifer observed. She's her mother's daughter. Ethan wiped his eyes unselfconsciously. Sarah always knew the right thing to say, how to cut through my anxiety and bring me back to what mattered. Lily has that same gift. Then you're raising her right, keeping her mother alive in her heart while letting her be her own person. They stayed until the park lights came on, signaling closing time. The drive home felt peaceful, Lily singing along to the radio, Ethan's thoughts quiet for once. No work anxiety, no guilt about taking time for himself, just contentment in the moment. When he tucked Lily into bed that night, she looked up at him with Sarah's eyes. Daddy, do you think you'll ever get married again? The question caught him completely off guard. What makes you ask that? Emma says her mom might get married again someday when she finds the right person. I was wondering if you would too. Ethan sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. I don't know, sweetheart. I loved your mommy very much. I still love her. But maybe someday, if the right person came along, I could love someone new too. Would that bother you? Lily considered this seriously. Would they be nice to me? Anyone I ever considered would have to be kind and wonderful and treat you like the treasure you are. Then I think it would be okay, as long as they know Mommy was here first and she's still important. Always. Mommy will always be important to both of us. Satisfied, Lily snuggled into her blankets. I think Jennifer is nice, and she makes good cookies. Ethan laughed despite his surprise. She does make good cookies, but Jennifer and I are just friends, baby. Okay. But if you wanted to be more than friends, that would be okay too. The casual wisdom of 7-year-olds was both endearing and terrifying. Ethan kissed her forehead and stood. "Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams." "Night, Daddy. Love you." "Love you too. More than anything." In the kitchen, Ethan poured himself a glass of water and thought about Jennifer. She was kind, warm, easy to talk to. Their shared experience of single parenthood created understanding without need for explanation. Lily adored her and Emma, and yes, there was something comfortable about their growing friendship, something that could potentially become more if they both wanted it. But he wasn't ready. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. The grief was softer now, but still present. He was still learning to be whole on his own before he could consider sharing that wholeness with someone else. His phone chimed. Victoria. Daniel attended his first GA meeting tonight. His advisor says he was engaged and honest about his situation. Small step, but worth noting. That's good news. How are you doing with it? Cautiously hopeful. Which feels dangerous but necessary. Hope isn't dangerous. It's brave. Your therapy is showing. Dr. Chen would be proud. Ethan smiled and set his phone down. He pulled out his laptop, not to work but to update the journal Dr. Chen had suggested he keep, writing down thoughts, processing emotions, tracking growth. It had seemed indulgent at first, but he'd come to value the practice. 6 months ago, I thought my life was ending, he typed. Tonight, I realize it was just beginning. The difference between those two states is community, support, and the courage to accept help. Victoria gave me structure, Jennifer gave me friendship, Lily gave me purpose, Dr. Chen gave me tools. Together, they gave me back myself. He paused, then added, Sarah would be proud of who I'm becoming. That matters more than I knew it could. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office early for his first official meeting as Director of Strategic Innovation. His new team was small, just 3 analysts and a project coordinator, but they were sharp and enthusiastic. He spent 2 hours outlining his vision for the department, emphasizing deep thinking over quick reactions, quality over speed, sustainable excellence over burnout. I don't want heroes on this team, he said firmly. I want healthy, balanced professionals who produce brilliant work because they have the space and support to think deeply. That means reasonable hours, actual vacations, and permission to say no when you're at capacity. Understood? The team exchanged glances, clearly uncertain whether to believe him. One analyst, a young woman named Maya, spoke up hesitantly. In my last department, that kind of talk was just lip service. They said work-life balance mattered, then punished anyone who actually maintained boundaries. I know. I've been there. Ethan met each person's eyes in turn. I'm not going to lie and say there won't be occasional intense periods or tight deadlines. But there'll be exceptions, not the norm. And I'll model the behavior I expect. You'll see me leave at 5 to pick up my daughter. You'll see me take vacation. You'll see me maintain boundaries. Because I learned the hard way that burning out doesn't make you valuable. It makes you ineffective. The meeting ended with cautious optimism. As the team dispersed, Victoria appeared in his doorway. Good start. They're going to test you, you know. See if you really mean it. I know. I'm ready for that. Good. She handed him a folder. Your first major project, analysis of the Asian markets for potential expansion. Timeline is 9 months. Budget is generous. Expectations are high. Ethan flipped through the brief excitement building. This was exactly the kind of work he loved, complex and consequential. This is going to be incredible. I know, that's why I'm giving it to you. Victoria's expression was almost proud. Don't prove me wrong, Ethan. I won't. As she left, Ethan looked around his new office, still barely furnished, and felt the weight of possibility. 6 months ago, he'd been a man barely holding himself together with caffeine and denial. Now he was a director with a team, a meaningful project, and a life that felt worth living. His daughter would be proud. His wife would be proud. And maybe, finally, he was starting to be proud of himself too. The Asian Markets project consumed Ethan's focus for the next 3 months, but in a way that felt energizing rather than draining. He built research protocols with his team, delegated effectively, and discovered that collaboration produced better results than solo heroics ever had. Maya proved particularly brilliant at data analysis, while another analyst named James had an intuitive grasp of cultural nuances that shaped consumer behavior across different regions. On a cold February afternoon, Ethan was reviewing preliminary findings when his phone rang. The school's number appeared on the screen, sending immediate alarm through his system. "Mr. Brooks, this is Principal Martinez. Lily's fine, but there's been an incident. Can you come in?" 20 minutes later, Ethan sat in the principal's office across from a tight-lipped teacher and a tearful Lily. The story emerged in fragments. A boy had been bullying Emma for weeks, calling her names because she didn't have a father. Today, Lily had punched him in the face. "I know it was wrong," Lily said through her tears, "but he was being so mean to Emma and she was crying and I just got so angry." The teacher, Mrs. Palmer, spoke with barely controlled frustration. "Violence is never acceptable, Mr. Brooks. Lily will need to serve detention for the rest of the week." "I understand." Ethan looked at his daughter, seeing Sarah's fierce protectiveness shining through the tears. "Lily, what you did was wrong. We don't hit people, no matter how angry we are." "I know." Her voice was small. "But," Ethan continued, looking at Mrs. Palmer, "what's being done about the bullying? Because my daughter defending her friend from sustained harassment seems like a symptom of a larger problem." Mrs. Palmer stiffened. "We have anti-bullying policies in place." "Which clearly aren't working if this has been happening for weeks without intervention." Ethan kept his voice level but firm. "I'll support appropriate consequences for Lily's actions, but I expect equal attention to addressing the behavior that precipitated this incident." Principal Martinez nodded slowly. "Mr. Brooks is right. We need to look at the full picture here. Mrs. Palmer, please document everything the other student has said and done. We'll be calling his parents in as well." After the meeting, Ethan drove Lily home in silence. She sat in the back seat, small and miserable. Once they were in the apartment, he guided her to the couch and sat beside her. "Tell me what happened, all of it." The story poured out. Weeks of taunts directed at Emma. Teachers who heard but didn't act because it was just words. Emma becoming quieter, sadder, withdrawing from activities she loved. Lily's growing fury at the injustice. The breaking point today when the boy said Emma's father left because she was stupid. "I knew it was wrong to hit him," Lily said, fresh tears streaming. "But my body just moved before I could think. I was so angry, Daddy." "I understand that anger, and I'm proud of you for wanting to protect your friend." Ethan pulled her close. "But we need to find better ways to handle situations like this. Violence creates more problems than it solves." "What should I have done?" "Told a teacher immediately. Come to me or Jennifer so we could intervene. Used your words to tell him his behavior was cruel and unacceptable." Ethan tilted her chin up gently. "The world isn't always fair, baby. People can be cruel. But we don't fight cruelty with more cruelty. We fight it with courage and honesty and refusing to be silent." "Like you did in the meeting? When you made them talk about the bullying?" "Exactly like that. Standing up for what's right doesn't always mean fighting. Sometimes it means speaking truth even when it's uncomfortable." Lily nodded, processing. "I'm sorry I disappointed you." "You could never disappoint me. You made a mistake. We all do. What matters is learning from it." He kissed her forehead. "You'll serve your detention. You'll apologize to the boy for hitting him, even though he was wrong too, and then you'll move forward being the kind and fierce person your mother raised you to be." That evening, Ethan called Jennifer to explain what happened. She arrived 30 minutes later with Emma, who immediately hugged Lily. "I'm sorry you got in trouble because of me," Emma said. "It's not your fault. That boy was being horrible." Lily squeezed her friend tight. "But I shouldn't have hit him. My dad says there are better ways." The girls disappeared into Lily's room while the adults settled in the kitchen. Jennifer looked exhausted and grateful. "Emma told me about the bullying last week, but she made me promise not to tell the school. She was afraid it would make things worse." Jennifer's hands wrapped around the coffee mug Ethan had given her. "I should have intervened anyway. I just didn't want to make her feel like I was breaking her trust. It's impossible to get these things right all the time. We just do our best." Ethan leaned against the counter. "The school is addressing it now. That's what matters." "Lily is lucky to have you. The way you handled that meeting, standing up for both kids while still holding Lily accountable for her actions, that's good parenting." "I'm figuring it out as I go. Some days I feel competent. Others, I'm certain I'm damaging her for life. Jennifer laughed softly. That's parenting in a nutshell, constant oscillation between confidence and terror. She paused, then spoke more carefully. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Are you doing okay? Really okay? Because you seem so much better than when we first met, but I know that doesn't mean the hard days stop happening. The question was gentle but direct. Ethan considered deflecting, maintaining the facade of having everything together, but something about Jennifer invited honesty. Most days are good now. I sleep, I eat real food, I spend time with Lily without constantly thinking about work. But sometimes grief hits me out of nowhere and I'm right back in that raw place where Sarah just died and everything feels impossible. He met her eyes. Last week I was making pancakes and found the recipe in Sarah's handwriting tucked in the cookbook. I completely fell apart for 20 minutes. What did you do? Let myself cry, called my therapist, talked to Lily about missing her mom, didn't try to push through it or bury it under work. He smiled slightly. 6 months ago, I would have shoved those feelings down and worked until I was too exhausted to feel anything. That's real growth, Ethan. Being able to feel hard things and not let them destroy you. Jennifer's expression was understanding. I still have those moments too. Last month, Emma asked if I remembered what her dad's voice sounded like, and I realized I was forgetting. That sent me into a tailspin for days. How did you handle it? Found old voicemails I'd saved, made a recording for Emma so she could hear him whenever she wanted. Let myself be sad without judging the sadness. She smiled. We're both doing the work. That's what matters. They talked for another hour while the girls played, conversation flowing between parenting challenges and work stories and the small victories of daily life. When Jennifer and Emma finally left, Lily helped clean up the coffee mugs. I like Jennifer, Lily announced. She's nice and she doesn't treat me like a baby. She is nice, and she understands what we've been through because she's been through something similar. Do you think you'll marry her? Ethan nearly dropped the mug he was washing. What? No, we're friends, Lily. But you could be more than friends. You smile different when she's here. The observation was unnervingly perceptive. Even if I did have feelings for Jennifer, which I'm not saying I do, it would be complicated. We'd both have to want the same thing, and I'd have to be ready for that kind of relationship. I'm not sure I am. Why not? Because loving someone means risking loss again, and losing your mother hurt so much that sometimes I'm afraid to let anyone else get that close. Lily looked at him with ancient wisdom in her young eyes. But Mommy wouldn't want you to be alone forever just because being with her was scary to lose. The simple truth hit him squarely in the chest. No, she wouldn't. Your mother was braver than me. She loved fully even knowing life is fragile. Then maybe you should be brave too. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, overwhelmed by her insight and compassion. When did you get so wise? I'm 7 3/4. That's very wise. He laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Yes, it certainly is. The following week, the company held its annual charity gala, a black tie event that raised money for educational programs in underserved communities. Ethan had attended perfunctorily in previous years, putting in an appearance before escaping early to return to work. This year, Victoria made it clear his presence as a director was expected. Bring a date if you'd like, she'd said casually, or come solo, but be prepared to network. Donors like meeting the people behind our programs. Ethan stood in front of his closet the night before the event, staring at the suit he hadn't worn since Sarah's funeral. The thought of attending alone felt daunting. On impulse, he texted Jennifer. Random question. Would you want to go to a work charity gala with me Saturday night? Totally understand if that's not your thing. No pressure either way. Her response came quickly. Is this you asking me on a date or asking for moral support at a work function? He stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Honesty won out. I'm honestly not sure. Both? Neither? I just know I'd like you there. Then I'd love to come. What's the dress code? Black tie. Fancy. Probably boring speeches and mediocre chicken. Sounds perfect. Pick me up at 6? The gala was held at an elegant hotel ballroom, chandeliers glittering above round tables draped in white linens. Ethan arrived with Jennifer on his arm, struck by how beautiful she looked in a midnight blue dress that brought out her eyes. She'd done something different with her hair, and the effect was stunning. "You clean up nice, Mr. Brooks," she teased as they entered. "You're radiant. I should have mentioned that already." "You just did. I'll take it." They navigated the crowd, Ethan introducing Jennifer to colleagues while she charmed everyone with her warmth and quick wit. He found himself relaxing, enjoying the evening in a way he never had at these events. Jennifer made everything lighter, easier. Victoria appeared at their table just before dinner, resplendent in a black gown that managed to be both elegant and subtly powerful. Her eyes took in Jennifer with sharp assessment. "You must be the famous Jennifer I've heard about. I'm Victoria Hale." Jennifer stood, shaking her hand firmly. "Ethan's told me so much about you. Thank you for what you did for him." "I simply removed obstacles he'd built for himself. The rest was his work." Victoria's gaze moved between them with something that might have been approval. "I'm glad he has support outside the office. Balance is essential for sustainable success." After Victoria moved on to greet other tables, Jennifer leaned close to Ethan. "She's terrifying and magnificent at the same time." "That's an accurate assessment." Dinner passed pleasantly. The chicken was indeed mediocre, but the conversation was engaging. Ethan found himself laughing genuinely at Jennifer's stories about hospital chaos and the absurdities of medical bureaucracy. When the dancing started, he surprised himself by asking her to dance. "I should warn you I'm terrible at this," he said as they moved on to the floor. "Good thing I'm a nurse. I'm trained to catch people when they fall." They swayed to the music, and Ethan was acutely aware of her hand in his, the warmth of her waist beneath his palm, the way she fit against him with easy comfort. It felt both foreign and right, thrilling and terrifying. "Can I tell you something?" Jennifer's voice was soft near his ear. "Of course. I think I might be developing feelings for you, real feelings, and I wanted to be honest about that before we got any further into whatever this is becoming." Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "I think I might be developing feelings for you too, and that scares me." "Because of Sarah? Because losing her nearly destroyed me. Because I'm terrified of loving someone and losing them again. Because I have a daughter whose heart would break if I brought someone into our lives and it didn't work out." Jennifer pulled back slightly to meet his eyes. "I understand that fear. I have it too. Emma's already attached to Lily, and if things between us went badly, it would hurt both girls." She paused. "But I also think we could be really good together. We understand each other's lives. We're both figuring out how to move forward while honoring the people we lost. And Ethan, when I'm with you, I feel like myself again. Not just Emma's mom or a nurse. Just me." "I feel the same way." The admission felt monumental. "But I don't know how to do this. How to date as a single parent. How to introduce someone new into Lily's life carefully. How to protect everyone's hearts while still being open to possibility. We figure it out together, slowly, honestly. With the girls' well-being as our first priority." Jennifer's smile was gentle. "We don't have to have all the answers tonight. We just have to be willing to try." Ethan pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. "I'd like to try. Carefully. But yes, I'd like to try." They stayed on the dance floor through 3 songs, holding each other and swaying, neither speaking. Around them the gala continued, but Ethan was aware only of Jennifer's warmth, her steady presence, the feeling of being seen and understood. When they finally left the dance floor, Victoria caught his eye from across the room. She raised her glass fractionally, a gesture that might have been approval or simply acknowledgement. Ethan raised his own glass in return, a silent thank you for pushing him toward life instead of letting him hide in work. The drive home was quiet, comfortable silence punctuated by occasional observations about the evening. When Ethan pulled up to Jennifer's house, she turned to him with a question in her eyes. "Would you like to come in for coffee? Emma's at my brother's house tonight. We could actually talk without little ears listening." Ethan recognized the offer for what it was. Not just coffee. A threshold. A choice to move forward or maintain safe distance. His instinct was to decline, to protect himself from the vulnerability of deepening connection. But he thought about Lily's words, about being brave, about Sarah, who had loved fearlessly despite life's fragility. "I'd like that." Jennifer's living room was warm and lived in, filled with photos of Emma and personal touches that spoke of a life slowly rebuilt after loss. They settled on the couch with coffee neither of them really wanted, the air charged with possibility and nervousness. "I should probably tell you about David," Jennifer said, Emma's father, "so you understand what you're potentially getting into. Only if you want to share. We were high school sweethearts, married at 22, had Emma at 24. He was brilliant and kind and completely unprepared for fatherhood. Jennifer's smile was sad but fond. We struggled those first few years, the sleepless nights, the financial pressure, the loss of our pre-baby identities. We fought more than we should have, but we were working through it, getting to a better place." She paused, gathering herself. The heart defect was congenital. Nobody knew. He just collapsed one morning while getting ready for work. By the time the paramedics arrived, he was gone. Emma was 3, too young to really understand, but old enough to know something terrible had happened. "I'm sorry, that's devastating." It was. For a long time I was angry, at him for leaving even though it wasn't his fault, at myself for the fights we'd had, the time we'd wasted being frustrated with each other, instead of appreciating what we had, at the universe for being so randomly cruel. Jennifer met his eyes. "But I've worked through most of that anger. What I'm left with is gratitude for the time we had, and determination to live fully with whatever time I have left. That's beautiful. And brave. It's survival, same as what you did." She set down her coffee cup. "I'm telling you this because if we're going to explore something between us, you should know that I come with baggage. Emma has abandonment issues. I have trust issues. We're both healing, but not healed. It's messy. I have baggage too. Grief I'm still processing. Lily, who asks pointed questions about my love life. A tendency to throw myself into work when emotions get overwhelming." Ethan reached for her hand. "We're both messy. Maybe that's okay. Maybe it is." They talked until past midnight, sharing stories about their late spouses, their children, their fears and hopes. Jennifer told him about the first year after David's death, working herself to exhaustion while Emma grew increasingly anxious. Ethan shared about the night Victoria fired him, the terror and eventual relief of having his self-destruction interrupted. "She saved your life," Jennifer observed. "She did, in the most uncomfortable way possible." Ethan smiled. "I was furious at the time, humiliated, convinced she was destroying everything. It took weeks to understand she was actually saving me from myself. That's real friendship, caring enough to do the hard thing instead of the comfortable thing. Have you had someone like that? Someone who intervened when you needed it?" Jennifer nodded. "My best friend Rachel. She's a therapist. After David died, I pushed everyone away, but Rachel just kept showing up, bringing food I didn't eat, sitting with me while I cried. Watching Emma when I couldn't function, she refused to let me isolate completely." Her voice thickened with emotion. "I don't think I would have survived that first year without her." "Where is she now?" "She moved to Oregon 2 years ago for a job opportunity. We talk every week still. She's been cheering me on as I've started to consider dating again." "What does she think about me?" Jennifer laughed. "I haven't told her about you specifically yet, but she'd like you. She values emotional intelligence and genuine kindness. You have both." When Ethan finally left at 1 a.m, it was with a gentle kiss on Jennifer's doorstep, sweet and tentative and full of promise. Driving home, he felt a complex mix of exhilaration and fear. He was stepping into unknown territory, risking his heart again after protecting it so carefully. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Jennifer. "Thank you for tonight, for being honest, for being willing to try. Thank you for being patient with me while I figure out how to do this. We'll figure it out together. That's the whole point." At home, Ethan paid the babysitter and checked on Lily. She was fast asleep, sprawled across her bed with her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm. He adjusted her blankets, kissed her forehead, and allowed himself to imagine a future where their family expanded to include Jennifer and Emma. The thought was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. The next morning, Lily appeared in the kitchen while Ethan was making breakfast, her hair a wild tangle and sleep still in her eyes. "How was the party?" "It was nice. Good food, interesting conversations. Did you have fun with Jennifer? Ethan flipped a pancake, buying time to formulate his response. I did. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. Jennifer and I are thinking about spending more time together. Just the two of us sometimes, not always with you and Emma. Lily's face split into a huge grin. Like dating? Yes, like dating. How would you feel about that? I think it's great. I told you Jennifer was nice. Lily bounced excitedly. Can we still all hang out together too? Of course. Nothing about our time together or your friendship with Emma will change. This just means Jennifer and I want to get to know each other better in a different way. Because you like her? Because I like her and she likes me, and we want to see if we could make each other happy. Lily nodded sagely. That's what dating is for. To see if people fit together good. Where did you learn that? Emma's uncle got married last year. Emma explained the whole thing to me. You date, then if you still like each other, you get engaged, then you have a wedding, then you're married forever or until someone dies. The matter-of-fact delivery of relationship progression from a 7-year-old was both amusing and sobering. That's approximately how it works, yes. But Jennifer and I are just at the very beginning. The dating part. Everything else is way down the road if it happens at all. Okay, can I have extra chocolate chips in my pancakes? The easy acceptance warmed Ethan's chest. Yes, you can have extra chocolate chips. As they ate breakfast together, sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in nearly 2 years. Hope. Real, tangible hope for a future that held more than just survival. A future with love, connection, possibility. His phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. Coffee. Monday morning? Want to discuss the Asian market's preliminary findings. Of course. 9 a.m. work? Perfect. And Ethan? You looked happy last night. Really happy. Hold on to that. He smiled and pocketed his phone. Lily was chattering about a project at school, her chocolate chip-smeared face animated with enthusiasm. Outside, the late winter sun promised the eventual arrival of spring. Inside, Ethan felt the slow thaw of a heart learning to open again. The fear was still there. It probably always would be. But fear and hope could coexist. Grief and joy could share the same space. He could honor Sarah's memory while building something new. He could be a devoted father while also being a man capable of romantic love. Victoria had fired him from destroying himself. Now he was being hired back into the fullness of life, one careful choice at a time. Monday morning arrived with the fresh promise of March, the last remnants of winter finally loosening their grip on the city. Ethan met Victoria in her office at 9 sharp, the Asian markets analysis tucked under his arm. She was already reviewing documents when he entered, her reading glasses perched on her nose in a rare display of vulnerability that made her seem almost human. Coffee's fresh, she said without looking up, gesturing to the side table where a carafe waited. Pour me a cup too while you're at it. Ethan obliged, settling into the chair across from her desk with both cups. Victoria removed her glasses and fixed him with that penetrating gaze that still made him slightly nervous despite months of working closely together. Your preliminary findings are exceptional. Thorough market segmentation, nuanced cultural analysis, risk assessment that accounts for variables most analysts miss entirely. She tapped the report. This is exactly the caliber of work I knew you were capable of producing when you had the mental space to actually think. Thank you. The team really came together on this. Maya's statistical modeling and James's cultural insights were invaluable. I'm sure they were. But the strategic framework is pure you. I can see your thinking patterns all over this. Victoria leaned back in her chair. The board presentation is in 2 weeks. I want you to present the findings yourself. Ethan felt his stomach drop. To the full board? That's usually your domain. It was, but you're a director now. Time to step into the visibility that comes with that role. Besides, you know this material better than anyone. You should be the one defending it. Defending it implies they'll challenge the recommendations. Victoria's smile was sharp. Oh, they absolutely will. Richard Chen in particular loves to play devil's advocate. He'll push back hard on the Southeast Asian expansion timeline. But you can handle him. You have data and logic on your side. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Ethan refined his presentation, anticipated objections, and rehearsed responses until he could deliver them in his sleep. Jennifer provided moral support, listening to practice runs and asking intelligent questions that helped him sharpen his arguments. Lily made him a good luck card covered in glitter that he kept on his desk. The night before the board presentation, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, anxiety churning in his gut. His phone buzzed at midnight. Victoria. Stop overthinking. You know this material cold. Trust yourself. How did you know I was awake? Because I remember my first board presentation. I was terrified, convinced I'd humiliate myself. Instead, I discovered I was capable of more than I believed. What if I freeze up there? Then you take a breath, look at your notes, and continue. They're humans, Ethan. Powerful humans with financial influence, but still just humans. They make mistakes. They have insecurities. They're not infallible gods. Easy for you to say. You command every room you enter. I learned to command rooms. It wasn't innate. And you're learning too. Now stop catastrophizing and get some sleep. Ethan smiled despite his nerves. Thank you, Victoria, for everything. Not just tonight, but the past 9 months. You've earned every opportunity you've been given. Remember that tomorrow. The boardroom was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs and walls lined with portraits of previous company leaders. 12 board members sat around the massive table, their combined net worth probably exceeding a small nation's GDP. Victoria sat at the head perfectly composed, her expression giving nothing away. Ladies and gentlemen, our Director of Strategic Innovation will present his analysis of potential Asian market expansion. She nodded to Ethan. The floor is yours. Ethan stood, connected his laptop to the projection system, and took a breath. Then he began. The presentation flowed smoothly for the first 20 minutes. He walked through market data, demographic trends, competitive landscapes, and regulatory environments. His voice remained steady, his arguments clear. He could see some board members nodding, making notes, leaning forward with interest. Then Richard Chen raised his hand. Your timeline for Southeast Asian entry seems aggressive. You're proposing initial market testing within 6 months, but you've identified significant regulatory hurdles that typically take 9 to 12 months to navigate. How do you reconcile that discrepancy? Ethan had anticipated this exact question. Excellent point, Mr. Chen. The timeline assumes we're pursuing partnership strategies with established regional players who've already navigated those regulatory frameworks. Rather than building from scratch, we'd be leveraging existing infrastructure and compliance systems. That accelerates our timeline significantly while reducing risk exposure. And if those partnership negotiations fall through, then we shift to the contingency timeline outlined in Appendix C, which extends the launch window to 14 months but maintains profitability projections. The partnership approach is optimal, but not the only viable path. Richard smiled slightly, a predator acknowledging worthy prey. Good answer. The questions continued, some challenging, others clarifying, all demanding deep knowledge of the material. Ethan fielded each one, occasionally referencing his notes, but mostly speaking from genuine understanding of the analysis his team had produced. He watched Victoria from the corner of his eye, saw the faint approval in her expression. After 45 minutes, the questions ceased. Victoria stood. Unless there are additional concerns, I'd like to call for a preliminary vote on proceeding with the proposed strategy. All in favor? 11 hands rose. Only Richard abstained, though his expression suggested thoughtful consideration rather than opposition. Motion carries. Mr. Brooks, excellent work. Please coordinate with Maria to begin implementation planning. Victoria's tone was all business, but her eyes held warmth. You're dismissed. Outside the boardroom, Ethan's hands shook with adrenaline release. He'd done it. He'd presented to the board, defended his work against serious challenge, and earned their approval. The impossible had become reality. His phone buzzed. Jennifer. How did it go? I think I just became a real director. Never doubted it for a second. Celebration dinner tonight? My place. I'm cooking. Perfect. I'll bring wine. That evening, Ethan arrived at Jennifer's house with flowers and an expensive bottle of red he'd stopped to purchase specifically for the occasion. She answered the door in jeans and a soft sweater, her feet bare, her smile genuine and warm. Congratulations, Mr. Director. She accepted the flowers with a kiss that lingered just long enough to make his heart race. The girls are having a movie marathon in Emma's room. We have the kitchen to ourselves. Dinner was simple but perfect. Roasted chicken, vegetables, conversation that flowed as easily as the wine. They'd been officially dating for 6 weeks now, a careful progression of dinners and coffee dates and family outings with the girls. It felt natural, unforced, like pieces sliding into place with gentle inevitability. "I need to tell you something," Jennifer said as they cleared dishes, "and I'm nervous about how you'll react." Ethan felt tension creep into his shoulders. "Okay?" "The hospital offered me a promotion, shift supervisor for labor and delivery. Better pay, better hours, more stability. But it means evening shifts 3 days a week instead of my current schedule." "That sounds like a great opportunity. Why would I react badly?" "Because it means I'd need more help with Emma. My brother can cover some nights, but not all of them. And I don't want you to feel pressured to step into a parenting role before you're ready." Understanding dawned. Ethan set down the dish he was holding and turned to face her fully. "Jennifer, I care about Emma. Not just because she's your daughter or because she's Lily's best friend, but because she's a smart, funny, kind kid who deserves support. If you need help with her occasionally, I'm happy to provide it. That doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like being part of each other's lives." Relief washed across Jennifer's face. "You mean that?" "I do. Lily would be thrilled to have more time with Emma. And honestly, I like the idea of our families blending naturally instead of keeping everything compartmentalized." Jennifer kissed him properly then, deep and grateful and full of emotion. When they broke apart, her eyes were wet. "I'm falling in love with you, Ethan Brooks. I've been trying not to rush it or scare you away, but I need you to know." The words hung between them, momentous and terrifying and wonderful. Ethan pulled her close, his heart hammering. "I'm falling in love with you too. It scares me, but it also feels right in a way I didn't think was possible again." They stood in her kitchen holding each other while laughter from the girls' movie marathon drifted down the hallway. This was what life could look like, Ethan realized. Blended families, shared responsibilities, love built on mutual understanding and respect. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, negotiations about schedules and boundaries. But it would be real and worth fighting for. Spring arrived in earnest, bringing warmer weather and a sense of renewal. Ethan's Asian markets project moved into implementation phase, his team working efficiently within reasonable hours to execute the strategy the board had approved. He left work at 5 most days, spent evenings with Lily, and carved out time for Jennifer several nights a week. Victoria's brother Daniel had maintained his sobriety and financial recovery for 4 months now, attending meetings regularly and rebuilding his life with slow, steady progress. He'd started a job in accounting, modest but stable, and was living in a small apartment he could actually afford. Victoria remained cautiously optimistic, her relationship with Daniel tentative but healing. "He called me yesterday," Victoria told Ethan during one of their regular check-in meetings. "Not to ask for anything, just to talk, to tell me about his week. It was the first time in years he's contacted me without needing something. That's real progress." "It is, and terrifying, because I want to believe he's truly changed, but history suggests—" She trailed off, vulnerability flickering across her usually controlled features. "Hope and caution can coexist," Ethan said gently. "You can support his recovery while protecting yourself from potential disappointment. That's not cynicism, it's wisdom." Victoria smiled. "When did you become so insightful about human behavior?" "I have an excellent therapist and a boss who modeled healthy boundary setting. I'm not your boss anymore. We're colleagues now." The shift in dynamic had been subtle but significant. Victoria still commanded authority, but she also invited collaboration, valued Ethan's perspective, and treated him as an equal partner in strategic planning. It was a professional relationship built on mutual respect rather than hierarchical power. In late April, Jennifer's promotion became official. The celebration dinner included both families, the 4 of them squeezed around Jennifer's dining table with pizza and cake and chaotic conversation. Emma and Lily presented their mothers with handmade cards declaring them the best moms ever, which prompted tears from both women. After dinner, While the girls played outside in the fading daylight, Ethan and Jennifer sat on her porch steps watching them. "This is good," Jennifer said softly. "Us. Them. This whole messy, complicated, beautiful situation we're building." "It is." Ethan took her hand. "I know we've been taking things slowly, but I want you to know I'm serious about this. About us. About building a future together." "I'm serious too. Terrified, but serious." "What terrifies you?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "That we're both still grieving our first loves. That we might be substitutes for each other instead of genuine connections. That our kids might get hurt if this doesn't work out. That I'm not enough because I'm not Sarah." Ethan turned to face her, cupping her face gently. "You're not Sarah. You're Jennifer. Completely different people with different strengths and qualities and ways of loving. I love Sarah with everything I had. Her death nearly destroyed me. But loving her doesn't mean I can't also love you. My heart is big enough for both." "How do you know that?" "Because Sarah would want me to be happy. She told me so right before she died. She made me promise I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone out of some misguided loyalty to her memory." Ethan's voice thickened. "It took me almost 2 years to understand what she meant. That honoring her doesn't require staying frozen in grief. It requires living fully, the way she would have wanted me to." Jennifer kissed him softly. "David told me something similar. Said he wanted me to find love again, to give Emma a stable family. I thought he was being absurd at the time because he wasn't supposed to die. But now I understand he was giving me permission to move forward when the time came." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughters chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. In June, the company celebrated its 50th anniversary with a massive party attended by employees, clients, and community partners. Ethan brought Jennifer as his date, no longer nervous about being seen together publicly. They'd become an established couple, their relationship solid enough to withstand scrutiny. Victoria found them during the cocktail hour, a rare smile on her face. "Jennifer, lovely to see you again. Ethan's been insufferably happy lately. I assume you're responsible." Jennifer laughed. "I like to think we make each other happy." "Good. He deserves it." Victoria's expression turned more serious. "Ethan, could I borrow you for a moment? There's someone I'd like you to meet." Ethan followed her to a quiet corner where a distinguished older man stood examining photographs of the company's history displayed along the wall. "Ethan Brooks, this is Jonathan Martinez. He's on the board of directors for the Hartwell Foundation, one of the largest nonprofit organizations focused on work-life integration and corporate mental health." Jonathan extended his hand with a warm smile. "Victoria's told me about your journey, the transformation from burnout to balanced leadership. It's a remarkable story." Ethan shook his hand, uncertain where this was leading. "Thank you, though Victoria deserves most of the credit for that transformation." "I disagree," Victoria interjected. "You did the hard work. I just removed obstacles." Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. The Hartwell Foundation is developing a corporate wellness initiative focused on preventing executive burnout and supporting employees through major life transitions. We're looking for someone to lead program development, someone with both strategic expertise and personal understanding of the challenges. Victoria suggested you might be interested. The offer caught Ethan completely off guard. "I'm honored, but I have a position here, a team that depends on me." "This would be a consulting role," Jonathan clarified. 10 hours a week, flexible schedule, focused on creating frameworks and best practices that companies can implement. You'd maintain your current position while helping us develop programs that could prevent thousands of people from experiencing what you went through. Ethan looked at Victoria, searching for her reaction. She nodded encouragingly. "It's a good opportunity, Ethan. Meaningful work that aligns with your values and expertise, and it wouldn't interfere with your responsibilities here. I've already discussed it with the executive team. We're supportive. Can I think about it?" "Of course." Jonathan handed him a business card. "Take a week. Talk it over with your family. Then let me know if you're interested in discussing details." That night, Ethan described the offer to Jennifer while they walked through the park near her house, the girls having fallen asleep in the car on the drive home from the party. "It sounds perfect for you," Jennifer said, "using your experience to help others avoid the same mistakes. creating systemic change instead of just surviving personally. But it's more responsibility, more time commitment. What if I fall back into old patterns? You won't. You know the warning signs now. You have support systems. And Ethan, this isn't about proving your worth through overwork. This is about meaningful contribution that fits within your existing boundaries. She was right, and he knew it. The old Ethan would have taken on additional responsibility as a way to validate his existence through constant productivity. The new Ethan could evaluate opportunities based on genuine interest and sustainable integration into his life. I think I want to do it, he said slowly. Not because I need to prove anything, but because it matters. Because I can help prevent other people from reaching the breaking point I reached. Then do it. We'll figure out the logistics together. A week later, Ethan accepted the consulting position. The work was engaging and purposeful, focused on developing screening tools to identify employee burnout, creating intervention protocols, and building corporate cultures that valued sustainable performance over heroic martyrdom. He drew heavily on his own experience, Victoria's insights, and the research-backed approaches Dr. Chen had introduced him to in therapy. By August, he'd helped design a pilot program that 3 companies were implementing. The early results were promising: reduced turnover, improved employee satisfaction, better long-term performance metrics. Victoria was using elements of the framework within their own organization, creating policies that explicitly valued work-life integration. You're changing lives, she told him during one of their weekly coffee meetings. Not just through the Hartwell work, but through how you're modeling balanced leadership here. The junior analysts talk about you constantly, how you leave at 5 without apology, how you take your full vacation time, how you're successful and present. You're proof that the old toxic models don't work. I learned from the best, Ethan said, raising his coffee cup in a toast. We learned from each other. Victoria's expression softened. That night I showed up at your door. I was terrified I was overstepping, that you'd reject the help or resent the intervention. But I couldn't stand by and watch you destroy yourself when I knew exactly where that path led. You saved my life, Victoria. I understand that now. You gave me back myself. No, I just removed the obstacles you'd built. You did the rest. You chose therapy. You chose presence with Lily. You chose to rebuild yourself into someone sustainable. Those were your choices. Your courage. Ethan thought about that conversation later as he sat in family therapy with Jennifer, Lily, and Emma. They'd started the sessions 2 months earlier, working with a counselor who specialized in blended families to navigate the complexities of merging their lives. The girls adored each other, but there were still jealousies, boundary questions, and difficult conversations about grief and change. How do we honor the parents who died while making room for new family configurations? The therapist, Dr. Patel, asked during one session. Lily answered first, her 7-year-old wisdom striking as always. We remember them and love them, but we also love the people who are here now. Love doesn't run out just because you use it on more people. Emma nodded vigorously. My dad will always be my dad, but that doesn't mean Ethan can't be important too. Different, but still important. Dr. Patel smiled. That's beautifully said. Adults could learn a lot from that perspective. By September, nearly a year after Victoria had knocked on his door at midnight, Ethan's life had transformed so completely that the man he'd been felt like a stranger. He worked meaningful hours on projects that mattered. He was present and engaged with Lily, attending school events and helping with homework and knowing her friends' names. He had a relationship with Jennifer that deepened daily, built on honesty and mutual support and genuine affection. He was making a difference through his consulting work, creating frameworks that would help thousands of employees avoid the burnout that had nearly destroyed him. On a Saturday morning in late September, Ethan woke to find Lily standing beside his bed, a serious expression on her young face. Daddy, I need to ask you something important. He sat up, immediately alert. What is it, sweetheart? Are you going to marry Jennifer? The question was direct and unambiguous. Ethan took a breath, choosing his words carefully. I don't know yet. Marriage is a big decision. Why do you ask? Because if you are, I want to help pick the ring. Mommy would want me to make sure it's pretty. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. You think Mommy would be okay with me marrying Jennifer? I think Mommy would want you to be happy. And Jennifer makes you happy. I see it on your face. Lily climbed onto the bed, settling beside him. You smile more now. You laugh at Emma's jokes even when they're not funny. You seem like you're actually here instead of always thinking about work. When did you get so observant? I've always been observant. I just didn't say things before because I was worried it would make you sad. The admission broke his heart. His 7-year-old daughter had been monitoring his emotional state, protecting him from difficult conversations because she recognized his fragility. What kind of burden was that for a child to carry? Lily, you never have to protect my feelings. If you have questions or concerns, you can always talk to me. Always. I'm the parent. Taking care of you is my job, not the other way around. I know, but I love you, so I want you to be okay. Ethan pulled her into a fierce hug. I am okay. Really okay. For the first time in almost 2 years, I'm actually okay. And you're a big part of that. Your love and your patience and your wisdom that seems way beyond your years. They sat together in comfortable silence before Lily spoke again. So about the ring? Ethan laughed. I promise if I decide to propose to Jennifer, you'll be the first person I consult about ring selection. Good, because I have opinions. 2 weeks later, Ethan sat across from Jennifer at their favorite restaurant, the one where they'd had their first official date. The girls were at Jennifer's brother's house for the evening, giving them rare uninterrupted time together. I need to talk to you about something, Ethan said, his heart racing despite having rehearsed this conversation a dozen times. Jennifer set down her wine glass, concern flickering across her face. That sounds ominous. It's not. At least, I hope it's not. He reached across the table, taking her hand. We've been together for 8 months. Our families have blended beautifully. The girls adore each other. We've built something real and sustainable and good. We have, Jennifer agreed, her voice soft. I know it hasn't been very long by traditional standards, and I know we're both still healing from losing our first spouses, but I also know that I love you. Completely, genuinely, without reservation. You make me want to be braver, kinder, more present. You've helped me become someone I actually like again. Ethan, where is this going? He took a breath, steadying himself. I want to marry you, not tomorrow or next month. We can have a long engagement, plan carefully, make sure the girls are ready. But I want you to know my intentions are serious. I want to build a life with you, a real, permanent, committed life. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Are you proposing? Not officially, not without Lily helping me pick a ring. He smiled at her confusion. She insisted she be consulted, something about making sure her mother would approve of my choice. Jennifer laughed through her tears. That sounds like Lily. So I'm asking if you'd be open to the idea. If someday, when the timing feels right for everyone, you'd consider marrying me. Yes. Jennifer squeezed his hand. Yes, I'd consider it. I'd more than consider it. I love you, Ethan. I want to build a life with you too. They sat in the restaurant holding hands across the table, both crying happy tears while other diners pretended not to notice. It wasn't a traditional proposal, but then nothing about their relationship had been traditional. They were two people who'd loved and lost, found each other in grief's aftermath, and chosen to build something new without forgetting what came before. 3 months later, in mid-December, Ethan officially proposed on the anniversary of the night Victoria had fired him. He'd planned it carefully with Lily's enthusiastic input. The 4 of them were decorating Jennifer's Christmas tree when Ethan pulled out the ring box. Lily had indeed had strong opinions about the design and got down on one knee. Jennifer Martinez, you've made this year the best of my life. You've loved me and Lily with patience and generosity. You've shown me that my heart is big enough to hold both grief and joy. Will you marry me? Jennifer's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming. Yes, yes, of course, yes. The girls erupted in squeals of delight, jumping up and down and hugging each other. Ethan slipped the ring onto Jennifer's finger, then pulled her into a kiss while Lily and Emma cheered. That evening, after the girls had finally exhausted themselves and fallen asleep on the couch, surrounded by wrapping paper and ornament boxes, Ethan and Jennifer sat in her kitchen drinking hot chocolate. I can't believe this is real, Jennifer said, admiring the ring on her finger. A year ago, I was alone and convinced I'd never feel this way about anyone again. A year ago, I was working myself to death and calling it dedication. Ethan pulled her close. It's amazing what can change when you let people help you. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Saw the Facebook announcement. Congratulations, you've earned every bit of happiness you've found. Thank you for everything. Starting with that midnight firing, best management decision I ever made. Though let's be clear, you did the hard work. We learned from each other. We did. Merry Christmas, Ethan. Merry Christmas, Victoria. Ethan set his phone down and looked around Jennifer's house at the crooked Christmas tree they'd decorated together, at the girls asleep on the couch, at the woman he loved sitting beside him. Outside, snow had begun to fall, blanketing the world in quiet white. A year ago, he'd stood in his doorway staring at Victoria in shock and terror, certain his life was ending. He'd been wrong. His old life had been ending, the life of exhaustion and grief and barely controlled chaos. But from those ashes, something better had emerged, a life of presence and connection, of sustainable success and genuine joy, of love that honored the past while embracing the future. The knock that had seemed like destruction had actually been salvation. Victoria had fired him from survival mode, and in doing so, had hired him back into the fullness of living. She'd given him the greatest gift possible, the chance to become someone whole again, someone capable of loving and being loved, someone who could look at his daughter and his fiancée and feel gratitude instead of just guilt. Lily stirred on the couch, opened her eyes sleepily, and smiled when she saw them. Is this real? We're really going to be a family? We already are a family, sweetheart, Ethan said. This just makes it official. Good. Lily closed her eyes again, content. Mommy would be happy. I know she would. Ethan believed that too. Sarah would want this for him, would celebrate his healing, his growth, his capacity for continued love. She'd want Lily to have the stability of a blended family, the joy of a sister friend, the gift of watching her father choose happiness instead of martyrdom. As Jennifer rested her head on his shoulder and the girls slept peacefully nearby, Ethan felt the final pieces of himself click into place. He was no longer the ghost who'd existed on 4 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. He was a father, a partner, a leader, a consultant making meaningful change. He was someone who'd been broken and had chosen to heal, someone who'd been saved by an uncomfortable intervention and had used that salvation to build something beautiful. The night he was fired had been the night he finally started living, and he would spend the rest of his life grateful for the woman who'd cared enough to fire him.